We interrupt your regularly scheduled Team Sky posting for MandJTV's Redeeming Pokemon Scarlet video.
Almost 3 years ago, I embarked on my first ever playthrough of Pokemon Scarlet. And it wasn't perfect.
No.
While I loved most of the new Pokemon designs, the characters, the story, and the truly open world experience, there were a few things that I wish had gone differently. 3 things, specifically. The first was the technical problems.
Yeah.
The lag, terrible frame rates, and general jankiness were pretty harmful to my experience. But thanks to the Switch 2, those problems are gone. It still ain't that pretty of a game, but now it runs great. So because one of my 3 problems has already been solved, I figured why not cover the other 2?
I'm going to be interested to see what his other 2 points are. I mean, I called this from before day one, right? The windmill. I've talked about this. Like the trailer where it showed the windmill, how the windmill was a different frame rate in the background. No, I 100% called those gonna be technical issues. And that is the thing that really soured Scarlet and Violet for me, because I did play through both. Like I bought both, I played through both. A little bit of an oddity for me specifically, because like usually I buy one version. I actually enjoyed the games. I thought that they had a lot to give. Did I like Sword and Shield a little more? Yeah, I like that there was a battle tower, because as somebody who just for some reason keeps running into like Nintendo Switch Online issues, like I keep getting error coded, you know, and then generic error code, you know, reset your router, etc. And it's just like I literally have this issue with no other game, no other system. It's just the Switch. So it could just be me. It could be Idaho internet. But like, it's definitely one of those things where like, yeah, he's correct. It did fix a lot of like the issues. It fixed a lot of the technical stuff. I can play the game without my eyes bugging out, okay? You know what the like 99.9% of my Switch 2 time is? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That's it. Sure, I got Mario Kart. I did a single VOD on it, and I'm just like, nah, $50 game, like at best. With updates, $40 game. But like, yeah, I literally play it so Scarlet and Violet don't make me like just my eyes bug out, right? Like I don't know what it is. There's like, because I usually pay it like 1080 60, right? Sure, PC gamer privilege, but there is a certain point where it's like I can handle 30 still, but there's certain 30, and I don't know if it's how they do graphics. I don't know how specifically what it is. Like Dark Souls Remastered on PC, I'm sure I can run that at 30 just fine, or I run PC games at 30 FPS just fine. Dark Souls Remastered on the Switch 1 made my eyes just wig out. I don't know what it is with the Switch. Maybe it's a smaller screen. I do play on a 32 and 24 inch respectively on my PC, so it could be one of those things. But yeah, like it feels almost like the Fallout effect, right? Like, you know how you like Fallout 3, you hear 3 Dog, ow, and he just talks to you over the radio, right? Or insert mods for like New Vegas, you know, was it Blue Mountain Radio in the funny DLC with Democracy Officer book shredder, right? Oh my god, why can't I remember the name of the deals? Old World Blues, or 76, where like, you know, people will mod in different radios and stuff like that. Like, but like the world is kind of like a wasteland. Like it does feel a little better now. Certain areas, like the Area Zero Crater, do feel a lot better and feel a lot more lively. I have run into the issue of chain encounters where like I'll encounter something, and because Miraidon or Koraidon, depending on your game version, like goes back for the battle, and then you exit and then you get into another encounter. Like, but is that really the worst thing if the performance is actually good? What Scarlet and Violet 2 is right now on the Switch 2 should have been that at launch. If not at launch, at least patch 1, right? The stability was absolutely just awful.
This is the story of my second Pokemon Scarlet playthrough, done with the goal of redeeming the first one. The game begins as usual, running buttery smooth, and already completing redemption task number 1. Play on the Switch 2. The next big change I made from the first playthrough was immediate, that being my starter choice. In my original playthrough, I did not choose my favorite of the trio. At least, not my favorite final form. Back then I chose Quaxley, which is my favorite of the base forms, but I don't care much for Quackquavel.
I had to choose, what do you call it? Fuecoco. Oh man, he really needed a little bit of help, right? He's a special little dude. I was actually really, it was really cool to see, yeah, not a fan of Quackquavel. Really not a fan of that, if I'm being completely honest. But like, I don't know, Weed Cat, everyone was running Sprigatito, wasn't a huge fan of, I don't know. Like, I'm in the weird, like, I don't actually like Mega Lopunny adjacent because, like, I'm not necessarily, like, sold on the whole, like, bipedal Pokemon-ism, right? Like, I know that's a huge thing, but it's not necessarily that as much as it's like, I appreciate the design. I like what they did with Final Evolution, Masquerada. I liked what they did with it, you know, Cat Masquerade. I love what they did with it, but like, I don't know, just something. It just wasn't a selling point to me, if I'm being honest. But yeah, Weed Cat was kind of the favored, right? The favored pick. So I went with Fuecoco. He was just a special little dude. I need to do another full playthrough. I'm waiting for because I got to blitz the DLC too. So I'm waiting for the final of the Ruin quad, whatever they're called, right? I'm waiting for Chi-Yu to actually be beaten, because we're definitely gonna hit that 1 million mark. Get my mystery gifts. Probably do the Petra Run event. Probably do some of the DLC stuff for Ursaluna, Blood Moon Ursaluna, and then Terapagos. I'll have to blitz through all of that, and then I'll probably restart Scarlet and maybe go through that like on an actual stream of its own before we get Legend Z to A. So that's plug Kiznikip Gaming. I do VODs. We just did Metal Gear recently. But yeah, like, I don't know. The starters this generation, they weren't bad. They were kind of like not what I was expecting, but also from like an actual like Spanish, right? Like Spain, right? Paldea is supposed to be Spain. Like, it does make sense. You have traditional, is it flamenco for Quackwaval? You have Masquerade, which is, you know, Masquerada. I'm trying to remember Skeledirge. I mean, Dirge song music, right? Like, I'm assuming traditional Spanish music. Like, they really hit the nail on the head, and I kind of appreciate it.
It's fine, but a bit too goofy for my taste. My favorite final form Paldea starter is Skeledirge.
Yep,
but I couldn't use it in the first playthrough because of a higher priority. Armarouge. Armarouge is my favorite Paldea Pokemon of all of them, and overlapping fire didn't seem wise. But since I used Armarouge then, I can use Fuecoco now. I selected it and named it Charlie, because, you know, like, fire chars things.
I was about to, was waiting a moist critical jump scare.
Frankly, I think it's a fantastic name for a fire specialist, and I think it's weird they haven't done that yet. Picking Fuecoco was the first step of completing Redemption Task 2, use Pokemon I should have the first time. Yeah. It's a bit wordy, but, like, you get it. Beyond the
On subsequent playthroughs, this is definitely a game that I could get a lot of mileage out of, if I'm being honest, right? Whether it's a monotype run, whether, like you can kind of tailor your playthrough. And I think that's where the game, the auto battle mechanics, the candies, right? EXP candies, like that's where this game's strengths are going to lie, is being able to kind of have your own modular experience.
Starter, there were several other Pokemon that I wanted to use, but I either didn't end up using them at all,
right,
or I did use them, but just for a bit. I didn't finish the playthrough with them. This time, I planned to do right by those Pokemon and use them all the way through. During the earliest exploration areas, I caught several Pokemon, but the most important was Paldean Wooper. In my first playthrough, I used one that I ended up evolving into Clodsire, since Clodsire is one of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon.
Fact, same. Oh, I love him. He is such a cool little like chocolate bar, like you know the donuts, like the long donuts, not like the maple bars, but actually like chocolate. It's that. It's just a chocolate long donut, as I'll call it, because I totally butcher what it actually is.
Because, like, of course it is.
How
could you not like the Claude?
Correct.
In my first playthrough, though, I ditched Clodsire shortly after my Wooper evolved into it because I discovered its low base stat total, only 430. I regret doing that. I recall seeing comments back then talking about how they still had success with Clodsire because its BST can be deceptive.
A lot of Pokemon's base stat totals can be deceptive, and this is where we have the distribution of stats versus the ability can be a huge thing. You know, looking at Klefki Prankster, looking at Azumarill huge power, right? I think Mawile gets huge. I know Mega Mawile gets huge power, right? But like base stat total isn't everything. Sure, you know, people want to use the 600 BST Pokemon, right? But like, yeah, no, like this is true. Like it's about how you use it, right? Like, and I guess it kind of harkens back to like what the Gen 2 Karen, like, you know, there is no best Pokemon, use what you like, right? And how people have been trying to prove or disprove that over the years, right? I think Wolf Glick has done a very good job of trying to disprove that, or I guess prove that. Because he'll just show up to like a tournament with an Executor. At least he did in Gen 7, right? Like, man just shows up with Executor. Dude's on a different level. But But yeah, like it all comes down to how a Pokemon is built, right? Gengar has, I would argue, an amazing base stat total. I don't have the numbers offhand specifically. Let's see if I can't pull this up in my second monitor. And I'm bringing him up for a specific purpose. Those who've played Gen 7 know exactly what I'm talking about. So Gengar has a base stat total of 500, so better than Cloudsire, but its distribution is 110 speed, right? You're outspeeding Garchomp, right? 130 special attack, right? 60 HP, don't get hit 5-head, you're building Glass Cannon, right? Like, sure, and then you can have things like, I mean, you can honestly put an Assault Vest on if you want to make it super bulky, right? If you're really concerned about EVs in a playthrough, max out HP EVs for survivability, but even then, special attack and speed, you should be nuking things, especially with both a dual Ghost and Poison stab, Poison being good against Fairy, right? The issue comes down to the Curse Body, and that's why it's not used, at least in VGC anymore. Because when it had Levitate, oh baby. Whew. I missed those days. And then Gen 7 came along, and it unfortunately no longer gets... It doesn't even have an additional ability. All it has is Cursed Body. There's no second. There's no hidden ability. So all of these things come together, right? Not only do you have to look at base stat total, right? But you also have to look at, typing as well, right? What the Pokemon is, right? But you also have to look at, like, what abilities does it have access to? What's the distribution of that, right? If we were to go and look up, I don't know, Fluttermane, right? We're going to look at Fluttermane, right? Fluttermane excels because of its distribution. It's just better Miss Magius, is it not? Right? Base stat total 570. So it's pretty, like, legendary, pseudo-legendary tier, right? 55 HP, 55 attack, 55 defense. Bro, if this thing gets hit by, like an Iron Head, this thing just folds, right? It just goes away. But, like, special attack 135, special defense 135, speed 135. This thing has, like single-handedly soloed certain, like, Terra raids for me. Like, it's wild. So the distribution absolutely does matter. It also gets photosynthesis, which either on holding the funny boost energy or in sunlight, right, it gets a boost to its highest stat. So it can also be modular in special attack, special defense, or speed, right? So if you want a tanky Fluttermane, yeah, you just make sure you mat 31 IVs, 252 EVs, or however you're going to max that out. Because especially if you're getting a complex IV spreads in regards to, say, like 252 HP for survivability, maybe like 60 speed or whatever your threshold you're trying to get over, right? And then the rest maybe in a special defense. Thus, at that point, photosynthesis boost will give you the boost in special defense. They're making a tankier Fluttermane. It is possible. I would have to have someone with competitive play Smog on VGC really, talk like dive into that and see if that's relevant or not. What actually that threshold's, right? But like, yeah. It comes down to a number of factors when talking about Pokemon. I'm sorry. I've totally off the rail just rambled for a bit. Let's continue.
Low special attack does not matter if you always use physical attacks.
Correct.
And if you're already slow, then who really cares if you're even slower? Plus, with Water Absorb, that's 2 immunities, 5 resistances, and only 3 weaknesses. Cloudsire would clawed its way back. The rest of the pre-Mesa Goza exploration was focused on training my team and filling it with placeholders. But as I did this, I kept my eye out for something incredibly important.
Lamigo?
A shiny Pokemon.
Okay.
Scarlet and Violet are widely considered to be the easiest games to find shiny Pokemon in.
Dude, I was training in Area Zero Crater. I have found at this point, without any sort of sandwiches, I have found 2 shiny Iron Bundle. This Pokemon just wants me to use it. And I'm like, but I don't want to use the Penguin. Well, Kip, your 2 shiny Iron Bundles say otherwise.
Because you can see so many Pokemon at once. During the initial release period of the games, basically everyone I knew found a random shiny during their playthrough.
I did not.
Except for me.
Hey, non-shiny bros, let's go.
I spent over 40 in-game days playing and hunting and found nothing. While others, like my girlfriend or her brother or my friends, found one within their first few hours. For me to get my first Scarlet Violet shiny, I had to complete the entire Pokedex, get the shiny charm, and intentionally hunt for hours. But thankfully back then, I handled this bad luck with grace and maturity. I had defied the gods that had defied me and slain them in the process. Because after all, what is a god to a non-believer? This time will be different. The enhanced performance on the Switch 2 doesn't just make the game run more smoothly, it spawns more Pokemon too. This was Redemption Task 3. Find shiny Pokemon without the shiny charm.
Yeah.
It's been almost 3 years. The shiny gods had to have regenerated by now. Right? Next came the lengthy school portion of the intro, during which I got—
What do you mean? What do you mean lengthy school port? I missed all the classes. In both my playthrough of Scarlet and Violet, I have never done the classes. I have been the delinquent that Team Star is.
to see some very exciting things. Look at the children. Their frame rate. They're kicking normally.
It's so better.
So lame
It's so
that I'm
better.
celebrating this.
Right?
Then once I was finally set loose, I got the invite to go to Kitakami, but opted against it. There was no DLC in the first playthrough, and since the point of this is to do the first one over again, but better, it'd be weird if I used it now. Instead,
I actually wonder how Kitakami works, and by extension, I'm sure the Indigo Disc as well. Because I did it in the post game, right? So, like, Carmine was, like, level 60 with her Sinistcha and stuff like that. So I'm assuming, like, it scales it down. I would be very interested to try that, actually. I'd be very interested to go through into the DLC early.
I headed west. In my first playthrough, I had gone east, but since Brassius is stronger than Katie and I didn't have a water or grass starter to fight the Titan Cloth, the Bug Gym was a much better place to start. Pretty quickly, I caught a Smoliv, which was not a Pokemon I wanted to use last time. I just knew I would need something for water types and Cloth. Once in Quartondo, I challenged Katie immediately, and Terrafire Charlie swept her with ease. I then backtracked to head out Mesagos' East Gate and promptly caught a Knackley, the next Redemption team member. I used Garganical for a long time in my first play.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Knackley. I keep seeing it, and I think it's NaC, because it's supposed to be like, you know, salt, right? So I'm like, yeah, NaCl, sodium chloride, but I always forget, like, it's an I. So instead of Garganacly, my brain autocorrects it to Garganackle, which is incorrect, absolutely. But I don't know, man. My brain is apparently still on that Jimmy Neutron tech. No, it's just sodium chloride. Bro, it's salt. Being an adult is realizing that Jimmy was just the pretentious guy at work that you don't want to work with.
Playthrough, but I benched it in favor of Revavroom to have a fairy counter. I regret abandoning it because it is a super cool Pokemon, and I will not be letting it go this time. I immediately named the new Knackley Flavor because, you know, salt, flavor. Side note, other members of the team without nicknames, I hadn't figured out ones that I liked yet.
Yeah.
I will nickname them at some point.
I knowed because Salt Bay. I watched Kira TV's video on Salt Bay. That man, he's a man of all time.
Did a lot of exploring and battling in the canyons, eventually evolving Charlie into Crocolore. I then passed the Titan Cloth intentionally because while I did have Grass-type Smoliv and Ground-type Wooper for the battle, both of those are...
That pop in though. Look at the stations.
While I did have Grass-type Smoliv and Ground-type Wooper
rough.
for the battle, both of those are super weak. Until they evolve. So I passed Artisan and ran down to the beach by Levincia to see what water types I could find. And I happened to stumble upon a high-level Finizen within reach of a throw. I decided to catch it and use it, since while I didn't plan to use Palafin originally, I was open to it. It also gave me a strong water type to use right away. So I immediately went to use the Finizen, nicknamed Wonder for Wonder Woman, to defeat the Titan Cloth. Next was the Grass Gym, and the Sunflora Gym test was a huge breath of fresh air from the previous version. It was an infuriating...
Yeah, when I went through it on the Switch 1, I think I went through it on my OLED specifically, so not even Switch 1 or Switch 2 status. Like, that was some chug.
Infuriatingly poor experience the first time. Once in battle with Brassius, Terrafire Charlie swept the battle like he had done against Katie. After a bit of exploring and trying, but really struggling to use Wooper, who was so weak that it couldn't seem to do anything in battle, I decided to head to the Mud Patch in the southeast. I hoped I would maybe find a shiny one there, but alas, none appeared. But I did find a high-level Clodsire, and opted to just catch that and use that instead to bypass the annoying training process. So I replaced the first Wooper and nicknamed the new Clodsire Claudius. You know, like the Roman name, Claudius. I will admit, it does kind of look like Clodius, but I assure you, it is Claudius. Shortly after this, I finally thought of a good nickname for Smoliv, Brawliv, named after my very silly proposed Smoliv evolution from a few months before the game came out. Hopefully, with this nickname, I will ensure that Brawliv will be sufficiently... Violet. I then flew back to Cortando and headed west toward the Titan Bombardier. I think that's how you're supposed to say it, because like Bombardier, yeah. Bombardier. I'm just calling it Bombardier. That's probably wrong, but it sounds the least weird. I wanted to do this next to ensure I had the ability to swim on Koraidon in case I spotted a shiny out in the water, which scarily did spawn before I could access them.
No.
But then, on the way up the hill... Wait! Has it happened? It's happened! It's happened!
Man, that Annihilate is gonna just absolutely just wreck.
Yes! Happiness is allowed!
I would say that the Switch 2, because it seems like more Pokemon can spawn in the game, like in the overworld, I would look at this and say that the Switch 2 is allowing for more chances for Pokemon to spawn. Thus, you're, churning through the RNG lottery a little quicker.
What do I do? That wouldn't hurt it. Oh, wait, Clodsire knows Yawn. Yes! Yes! Oh my god, that's so exciting. I love Annihilate. This was perfect. Not only did I have the shiny I deserved, but it was a Mankey specifically. The last team member that I wanted to redeem was Annihilate. I used one for most of my first playthrough, but ended up moving on from it when its fighting type overlapped with Quaquaval, and its ghost type offensively overlapped with my Terra Dark Baxcalibur.
Right.
But now, I could play through most of the game with a shiny one. And yes, Ghost will overlap with Skeledirge, but actually the only weakness they share is Dark, so that's pretty cool. And also, I've used 2 Ghost types on my team before and been totally fine, so this is gonna be awesome. Apt for this playthrough, I named the shiny Mankey Redeemer. You shall be Redeemer. So, I guess that's it, because I've already accomplished my goals. I'm playing on the Switch 2, I have the 4 Pokemon that I wanted on my team, and one of them is the shiny that I needed. Beat the game and video over, right? Wrong. You think after what happened last time, that 1 would be enough? 1 would have been sufficient the first time, but that ship left the harbor long ago. I'm on a brand new ship now that's faster, more powerful. It's got bigger propellers or something, which is why the task...
So I was doing the hiking stream, right? And because I took my Switch 2 out up there because I carry it in a case in a backpack, and I take it out, and someone commented, they're just like, man, it makes me nervous seeing a Switch 2 outside. Bro, I take this thing like everywhere. Anyway, it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City with me. At any time, any place, I'll just pull up my 3DS or Nintendo Switch 2. Still trying to find a way to discreetly secure a deck box. Somebody just shows up, you fool, pulls out the entirety of my U-Bell deck. So I got to work on that dual disc tech, okay? I gotta have a modular dual disc that I can break down into 3 parts, right? The 2 blades and the housing unit, just to pull that out of a backpack. This is it. These are my life goals.
Was find shiny Pokemon, not find a shiny Pokemon.
Right.
After the pain I felt last time, I better get more than 1. Next, I fought the Titan Bombardier, and while Knackley needed to swap out for Clodsire in the first phase, Flavor did just fine against the second phase, thanks to Arven's Knackley tanking all the hits. Then Arven revealed his sick dog, and I mainly skipped past it because I already knew about this and I didn't need to go through all those feelings again.
I was not expecting the gut punch of feels.
Next, I journeyed north to battle Giacomo at the Team Star Dark Camp. I led with my fancy new shiny Mankey, terrestrialized, and got one-shot by the Poniard's aerial ace. Oh, that's a huge bummer. Crocolore came in and easily defeated the Poniard, but then the Starmobile was tough. Crocolore didn't do much damage, so then I used Clodsire to try to put it to sleep, forgetting that Starmobiles cannot be afflicted with status conditions. I feel very confident that the Team Star camps are the toughest battles of the 3 paths.
Yeah, I could honestly agree to that. Most of the gym challenges you're able to sweep. It's because the Starmobile kind of functions like a Terra raid, so to speak, right? It functions like an actual boss battle. I know during one of them on my first playthrough, which is the Violet file, my main file, Like I had to, I definitely had to resort to revive chaining at a certain point just to get through it. Like I definitely came in unprepared.
Sure, the auto-battling part, that is trivial. But the boss battles themselves are often insane because of the Starmobiles. Starmobiles have insane stats with fantastic abilities and strong moves, so in many
Holy HP 408!
ways they're a lot like the Titan Pokemon, but you have to battle them after several other regular Pokemon. And unlike the Titan battles, a friend never shows up to help. And again, you cannot give them status conditions. Not even like pseudo conditions like Leech Seed or Salt Cure. As a
Right.
testament to this, Ares' fighting battle was the only one that I lost in my original playthrough. I'm pretty sure. Maybe there was another one, but that one was the most traumatic. I could have won that battle if I used potions, but I had wanted the added difficulty.
Right.
This Starmobile battle, which I expected to breeze through, turned into a sequence of chip away with little bits of damage,
Yep.
take a beating, switch once the HP got low, and repeat. Finally, I got the Starmobile down to a sliver, and Flavor finished it off. But by the end of the battle, my team looked like this. Starmobiles. Woof. I reached Cascarafa and the desert, desperately wanting Brawliv the Smoliv to evolve because in the Smoliv form it is unfortunately extremely weak. Not long later, Flavor the Knackly evolved into Knacklestack, which just want to say, quite fond of this Pokemon. It's kind of like a Minecraft frog.
Yeah.
Next to his
I thought it looked like the Minecraft cow. I have definitely referred to it as the Minecraft Pokemon.
time for the Team Star Fire Camp.
Ah, so is Zentreya.
Knacklestack handled Torkoal slowly but surely, which worked for me since it let me stall out almost every turn of the sunlight. The sunlight that was happening at night. That is the weirdest weather. Like, we can agree with that, right? Like, all the other ones make sense at any time. But harsh sunlight at night or indoors, what are we doing? I brought in Crocolore to snarl a bit, since while you cannot status the Starmobiles, you can drop their stats.
It's okay. Even ever since ever since weather where it was a thing, right? You know, even in Gen 1, right? We're gonna rain dance inside of I almost said Union Cave, that's Gen 2. We're gonna rain dance inside Cerulean Cave. We're gonna sunny day inside of Union Cave in Gen 2 GSC, right? Well, I guess Heart Gold, Soul Silver as well. We're gonna go set rain and or sun with Kyogre and Groudon in the battle tower. But I guess that kind of makes sense because like skyscraper, right? Like windows, right? That kind of makes sense. But like more like I don't know, like I get the sense of it. But like when you think about it, there's been some oddities in Pokemon, right? Like, but I mean, it's also like because it focuses on the game mechanics, not necessarily the overworld, right? And that would add, I think, a needless layer of complexity to the game.
Then I brought in Wonder the Finizen to charm it and totally nerf its offenses. And then Mila was, conveniently, incredibly stupid. She used Screech several times, despite all of them failing thanks to Finizen's clear amulet.
amazing!
With its offenses crippled and it wasting half its turns, Wonder simply had to dive a few times to wear the machine down and eventually take it out. I then ran around the dry area north of Levincia for quite some time, focusing on two things: training up Redeemer the Mankey and hoping to encounter the next shiny that I was owed. The first was a success, and I got my shiny Primeape. The latter was a failure. No shinies appeared. But that was fine. More would come. It is destiny. After that, I fought the Titan Earthworm, which Charlie the Crocolore defeated easily. Next, I wanted to beat Iono, but Nemona challenged me first. Thankfully, Claudius dispatched her entire team swiftly, because not only did I outlevel them, but all three of her team members were weak to ground or poison. After Iono's Silly Gym challenge, it was time for her battle. This was the first.
I am forever going to be bitter because I remember saying this very early on. Because, you know, she's like during her like trailer, like debuts, whatever, right? Like, because she's supposed to be streamer. I'm going to be forever bitter that Pokemon Company did not make like an actual like Iono VTuber model, right? Like, imagine what I doing what I do, right? But even more so. So kind of like how Zentreya has like a 3D model, right? Or like a bunch of VTubers now are moving on to 3D tech. Project Melody. Point being, right? Like 3D Iono hooked it up to like, you know, like Badger style mocap suit, right? And then like cast events, right? Like even if you have one person doing ideally you'd have the person doing like the voicing and the mannerisms, right? Like the same person for ease. But like you could just have like, you know, someone like voice over the mannerisms and stuff, or have like pre-recorded bits, right? Like you literally make her like the Hatsune Miku of like Pokemon, right? Like so you have like, I don't know, like your VGC event, or they go live on the Funny Purple app, right? And I think they go live on YouTube as well with like actual tournaments and stuff, which I really want to compete again this year. I actually just reached out to the local VGC group to kind of get team building ideas. I might honestly go ham in Gen 10. I want to see about certain things before doing that, but it is on my radar. I definitely need to get into the competitive space, whether it's Smogon and or VGC a little more. But I'm gonna be forever bitter that they just left like Iono off to the side and like didn't want to pursue, especially with the rise of like VTuber culture, like even HoloLive, right, in Japan, right? Pokemon, Nintendo, Japanese companies, HoloLive, Japan, right? Like, I feel it would have been very easy for them to like have Iono do like bits and pieces of streams and like updates on like Iono and stuff. I don't know, maybe the cost benefit analysis isn't there, but I think it would have been a really fun, cheeky way to earn some brownie points. And just do like the stream, like to, because it caters to like streaming culture and stuff. Put her in actual events, right? Like, oh, it would have been so cool, especially because she has her mannerisms, right? She bounces around and stuff. That would have been so cool. And then her little like Magnemite hair things, right? They'll maybe like they'll spin around with certain actions and stuff like that, or like maybe she's thinking really hard about like a certain play that's done, right? So like I don't know, like as someone who plays Dragapult EX, right? Maybe somebody drops like the Lily's Clefairy EX, right? And then you see Iono going, oh, it's over for the Dragapult player, and the Magnemite spin around her head. Or from like the VGC like actual like video game Pokemon standpoint, you have like, I don't know, Wolfglick shows up with an Executor. Is Executor in the game? I don't know. He shows up with just an absolutely underrated Pokemon, right? And Iono just kind of does the like question mark. Maybe there's like actual question marks over her head because it shows her in a virtual space. And then, you know, the Magnemite are swirling around. Bro, that could have augmented the experience so much. We also got a banger Worlds from what I saw. I didn't see it. But I did see some of the stage, and I'm like, man, Yu-Gi-Oh's got to step it up.
One where I started battling set style. I didn't change it in the options, but I just always clicked no when it asked. And I refused to use any healing items. I decided to do this because I'm 30. Also, I technically already kind of did this in the first two gyms as well, but I only used Charlie in those, so it didn't really matter. The electric gym battle was not very tough, since I mistakenly thought she would be a higher level than she was. Additionally, I'd done this before, so I had some excessively effective strategies, such as Water Absorb, Ground-type Clodsire being wholly immune to any damage from Belly Bolt, and then the cool combo of Smackdown into Bulldoze against her Electric Levitate Miss Mages. I promptly set off to do the next gym, the water one, and I was more nervous for this one because my only water-strong Pokemon was Dolive, who was not, like, weak for this part of the game, but I wouldn't call it good. And Crabominable's two stabs are ice and fighting, both of which are strong against Dolive. Turns out his Crabominable doesn't actually have an ice move, but it does have a fighting move, so...
Huh. Interesting.
Scary. Brawliv immediately took a beating from Veluza's Pluck, so the next turn I Terastallized to normal to remove that weakness.
Dude, Veluza always throws me for a loop. It feels like it's in the wrong game. Like, I like the design. Like, when you objectively look at it, and I've had other people, like, corroborate this. Like, they pointed it out, right? Like, it is objectively a very Pokemon design, right? It's a fish that slices itself up and serves itself, right? Like, it's very Pokemon. But I also sit there and I'm like... The visual design, something about it just always clashes with the game's art style, so it always throws me off.
That was actually somewhat of an oversight, though, because it also lost me my resistance to water. But Dolive survived the Aqua Cutter and Mega Drained down the Veluza. Dolive once again barely survived an attack from Wugtrio, but it stayed alive with Shell Bell and Mega Drain healing. I swapped in Claudius, finished off the Wugtrio, yawned the Crabominable to sleep, then safely brought Dolive back in to finish off the battle.
I wonder if it's just because of a lack of leftovers, because Shell Bell inherently leads itself to a more aggressive playstyle. Because Shell Bell, I think, can recover more than leftovers, but it is focused around attacks. Therefore, yeah, using Stab, Mega Drain at that point in time, he is going for an aggressive playstyle.
Afterward, I trekked to Medali. Medali? I don't know. Oh, it is probably Medali. Medley.
Medley from hit game The Wind Waker?
Oh my god, I just had this realization this moment. I could have
I literally didn't know this was a restaurant.
Fought Larry immediately, but I decided I wanted both Crocolore and Primate to be evolved first to have the ghost immunity so useful in normal battles.
Yeah.
So I made my way to Tag Tree Thicket. No longer Lag Tree Thicket. Thankakus. On foot to train and hopefully find my next shiny along the way. I did train, but I did not find a shiny. I ran around that thicket for so long, I didn't find crap. Afterward, I decided I was ready to fight the Team Star Poison Camp. Unfortunately, this started so badly since Atticus's skunk tank flinched Claudius with a sucker punch.
Rip.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Took me a minute to figure it out too. It's because the skunk tank has stench, which has—
Oh, I thought it'd be a held item. Stench 10% chance of causing the opponent to flinch when hit by... Yeah, that would actually mess me up, right? It's the same thing when you, like, throw a psychic into like a Gengar and then it doesn't work and you're like, wait a minute. And then you realize it's a Zoroark, right? Like that moment of like, that's not how that works. And then you're like, oh, now I get it.
the chance to flinch with any move, but it's only a 10% chance. So
10%
instead of what
though.
I expected to do in this battle, which was sweep with ground type immune to poison Clodsire, it became a mess of switching, chip damage, and general nonsense. By the end of just the regular Pokemon, this was how my team looked. And the Starmobile had not hit the field yet. The only healthy Pokemon left were one that did neutral to poison, one that was resisted, and one that was weak to poison. It got worse right away when one Noxious Torque took Wonder down to red HP, while Aqua Jet did almost nothing. Claudius came back in and did tank the spinouts, but it also didn't do much with Bulldoze. And after all this, in an act of desperation, I confess I used a potion. Look, I didn't want to, okay? But I got so unlucky in this battle, and Starmobiles are frankly so unfair. If you let me give it a status condition like it can give to me, this is a different discussion, okay? But Starmobiles are not sanctioned league battles.
Anyways, yeah.
I feel like potions are more okay during them.
I love
After the healing, Clodsire and the Starmobile exchanged hits until eventually Claudius won. After, frankly, really struggling with 2 of the 3 Team Star camps, I resolved I would not do the last 2 for a very long time. Not only are they, of course, super strong, but at the time, I had just 1 Pokemon strong against Fairy and none strong against Fighting. Those 2 sinful machines loomed large and ominously. After that, frankly awful battle, I spent a long time training. Then once Redeemer learned Rage Fist, I fully prioritized using it the necessary 20 times. Until eventually...
There he is.
I kept exploring and training and not finding shinies until I evolved Brawliv into its final form, Arboliva. And I saw her face.
I always pronounce it Arbor Olive because Arbor, like Arboretum, right? Arbor, tree, olive, tree, olive. I don't know. I could also be wrong, though. I do still pronounce it Rayquaza, even though Pokemon literally clarified this like last year, right? Literally, no, it's Rayquaza. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. Okay, I've been saying this for easily 20 years, okay? You would not change my mind. No, this ain't happening.
Then I started the normal gym test, and Charlie evolved during that. Finally, my Skeledirge! Then it was time to fight Larry. Flavor led off with Stealth Rocks to hurt the Staraptor later, then Annihilate simply Drain Punched until the battle was over. That was actually super easy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sorry, Larry. Nimona challenged me afterward, and while some of my Pokemon got low on HP, it was overall an easy win. I then began climbing Glaciato Mountain, and on the way, Flavor finally reached its final form of Garganicle. I continued to climb.
No, it is. Oh my god, I'm so confused. It is Garganicle. It's not Garganacl. Bro, I am this salt Pokemon. It's rubbing the salt in, pun intended.
And battle and explore, and not find shinies. I will admit, I was getting a little worried here. Then Wonder the Finizen reached level 37. Once that happened, I hopped into a Union Circle with my girlfriend Trinity, since you can only evolve Finizen by leveling up within a Union Circle at level 38 or higher.
Right.
I wonder how different it'll look. I'm just climbing. Wait. Let me see if I can. That's so creepy.
I love it.
Because I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Amazing.
That's really funny.
That's hype. I didn't know you emoted when that happened. I
That was it.
haven't used
You can
Union
go back
Circle
to
at all.
playing Donkey Kong now.
okay.
After reaching
Relevant.
Montevenera and messing with movesets, I decided to fight Ron. I destroyed her. After baiting 2 Shadow Sneaks into Redeemer and tanking them with Terra Fighting, Redeemer's 150 power Rage Fist plus Charlie's Shadow Ball absolutely wrecked her team.
I mean, like, I actually really like this because this was, oh god, what's his name? Oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. It's, Leon's himbo from Sword and Shield. Raihan, Raihan, right? Sword Shield gym leaders. Maybe? I'm literally having to remember his name because it's been a minute. Because I haven't talked about him yet. I literally, it's Raihan. I literally have to remember him by saying Leon's himbo. I love the double battles though. Like, I actually really enjoy the gym leaders that are double battles, especially because, like, you know, as somebody who tries VGC and tries to be a VGC player, right? Like, himbo, don't worry about the word. Don't worry about it. I just think of the picture of, like, can I find the picture offhand? There's a specific Leon and Raihan meme. Oh my god, can I see? I want to see if I can find it. It's like the Leon and Raihan meme where, like, they're in the Walmart and I think, like, Raihan's, like, holding up a dragon type Pokemon, like a Charmander or something, to the Walmart camera. Someone's gonna know exactly what image I'm talking about. I can't find it offhand, which is unfortunate. But, like, oh man, like, I do love the double battle gyms. I think that it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you don't want to overuse it. I don't know, but I also, like, I've played way too much Gen 3 back in the day. So, like, especially, like, Emerald, going into Coliseum XD Gale of Darkness, you know, where things are just double battles, right? Like, I miss it. I wish there was more. I wish there was a mainline game that just focused on VGC, but I also understand why that's not a thing. I think an interesting fix, because you know how, like, was it Pokemon Black and White had, like, a hard mode, quote unquote? If there was a mode that just swapped and shuffled teams around to be doubles, right? So, like, you could go in with doubles mode and then everything is a double battle. I think it'd be cool, but I think it would be a drain on development resource time, right?
I expect I would have dominated even without the stat buffs from the crowd. I spent some time training and upgrading movesets, specifically teaching Garganical Curse through the convenient modern-day egg move method.
It's so
then
good.
I finally decided to fight the Titan Great Tusk. In Phase 1, Palafin swapped out and Arboliva finished the job. In Phase 2, Palafin swapped out again, but then Arboliva got rocked by a fighting-type move. That was fine though, since for the first time, Hero Form Palafin came in and won handily. One thing
I am a little disgusted by Garganacle's stat block, because I haven't actually looked at his stat block. It has a 500. You want to talk about stat distribution and optimization? Holy mother of Trick Room. How does this compare to Torkoal, though? Specifically in terms of speed tiers. Torkoal is 20. So it's not quite super slow enough to really make use of a bunch of Trick Room stuff. It's 35, it's still pretty slow, but things like Torkoal are always still going to outspeed in Trick Room. But, like, holy optimization, Batman. 130, 100, 190. You're not using that special attack. Why do you care about that? Wow, I need to take a second look at Garganacle, because this is actually a little disgusting. Clear Body is going to make it so that way, yeah, it prevents it from lowering stats. That's hidden ability. Even Sturdy, I think Sturdy is going to be one of those that's like, sure, if you're proccing Sturdy with Garganacle shouldn't have been in play to begin with, right? Or you got very unlucky. Purifying Salt protects Pokemon status and have damage from ghost type moves. Why are you just not using Purifying Salt, right? Like Trick Room Purifying Salt, like bulky set, right? Oh my god. You could even have it hyper offensive by maxing that attack stat. Because I'm sure it gets stabs on a bunch of stuff, right? Stab Stonehenge. There we go. I'm sure that it gets a does it act? Yeah, it gets Salt Cure. Rock 20, 40 power. I don't know what you do. Deals damage each turn. Steel and water types are more affected. I think that's, while it's a signature move, I think that's more of a secondary move slot. So you'd probably run something like Rock Slide / Stone Edge and probably run Salt Cure in tandem with that. Anyways, back to our regular scheduled video.
I want to note here, in my first playthrough of Scarlet, I had no idea that you could go back and catch the Titan Pokemon basically right after you beat them until I'd like gotten a ways into the post game. And I just want to say, I totally would have used the Titan Great Tusk if I had known I could do that the first time. However, I opted not to do that this time because it overlaps with Clodsire and Annihilate, who I wanted to use more, and also it just shows up way later in the game, which is a genuine downside because as we've seen, Clodsire and Annihilate have had a lot of usefulness prior to this point.
So wait a minute. Is it you have to go back to the cave or like how do they spawn? I don't remember that.
I next made my way up to the Alfornata Plateau through Alfornata Cavern. I didn't fight the gym right away, instead running around training and looking for a shiny.
Yeah.
Which did not appear, what the hell? But eventually I decided it was time to battle Tulip. Well, I guess I actually had to battle Nemona first, but there's not much to report here outside finishing off her Masquerader with Terra Poison Clodsire.
Amazing.
That was pretty cool. Can't believe I ever thought this Pokemon was bad. After Emotional Yoga, which was a night and day better experience compared to the game's original version, it was time to fight Tulip. After a flip turn from Wonder, I brought in Charlie against Farigiraf. While I initially went for Snarl, I then realized it would be better to get a Torch Song boost as I KO'd Farigiraf. Charlie then one-shot both Gardevoir and Espathra, but Florges tanked the Shadow Ball and KO'd Charlie. Hero Form Palafin returned to the battle and ended it with a Jet Punch, getting me my 7th gym badge. I then upgraded some held items for the team, getting a Black Sludge for Claudius and Metronome for Charlie, and then I messed around for a while. The Fairy Team Star Camp was next, and I was really scared, so I was procrastinating.
Yeah.
And also looking for a shiny, which I still could not find. Look at how many Pokemon spawn all at one time.
It's good.
How are none of these shiny? I've spent so much time running around. I have played this file for 13 hours. There are so many Pokemon that spawn in so many places, and yet nothing. I knew people who got multiple shinies in the old version with half the spawns. I know this probably sounds greedy. I already had one, but I have the initial disaster to make up for. Where are the shinies? Where are the multiple shinies I am owed? And then
it happened?
At this point, in a moment of desperation.
Oh no.
I regret to inform you that I did something that I promised myself I would not do.
My God.
I shiny hunted on the way to Grush's gym, which I was headed to since I realized it was actually weaker than the Fairy Team Star Camp. That just surprised me. So turns out that was actually next in line. I stumbled upon a Magneton outbreak. I had neither an electric nor steel type in my party, and the steel typing could be helpful for the fairy camp.
I mean, that's honestly fair though, right? Like if we're looking at this from a tactical standpoint, like from an actual like metagame standpoint, right? Like, sure, something backtracking, not doing shiny hunting, but like this is also technically relevant because like, yeah, this actually like does actually help progress game state to actually catch something. He just so happens to be wanting an optimal Magnemite or Magneton, right? Just so happened to want to play optimally.
So I began to hunt. I KO'd enough to get the message in the corner twice. I used the picnic method to respawn them, then watched several ascend from the hillside. I could get just under 20 to show up all at once, and yet nothing. Sure, I only spent around 20 minutes doing it, but I saw a minimum of 200 Magnetons, and it was just so not fun. Gotta be real. Not a huge shiny hunting guy. It's just so boring. So I'm...
Dude, that's me, though. I was trying to shiny hunt a Friendguard Clefairy because I need a Friendguard Clefairy. I need a couple, actually. I need them specifically for Trick Room sets. Oh, God. I want to do so many funny things with Friendguard Clefairy. But, like, yeah, I got, like, I think, like, 5 picnic tables in, and I'm just like, this is boring. Want to go do literally anything else?
Moved on, dejected and dismayed, and decided to take out my aggression on Grusha. Although I should mention, something weird happened during the gym test.
Yeah, what's wrong with my Koraidon? Why?
What?
That's
amazing.
It can't be covered in snow. Because I'm not covered in snow. Now look, he's back to normal. What was that?
Amazing.
I have an answer. A cruel taunt! A false shiny Koraidon! The shiny gods taunted me again by showing me an alternate colored Pokemon for just a brief moment, showing me that it was out of my reach! And Grusha, he was just unlucky at this point. Because right during my greatest moment of wrath, he happened to be in my way.
Yeah.
In my angst and fury, I destroyed him mercilessly. With Curse, Leftovers, Terastallization, and Salt Cure, Flavor the Garganical swept him with ease. And after beating Grusha, I didn't know what else to do. I had nothing to do other than to just keep running around the region, desperately hoping my next shiny would appear. I went to the areas I hadn't set foot in yet. First, the Northeast Mountains and Bamboo Forest. A shiny Scyther would be amazing, so I had Steel Scizor for the fairy camp, or maybe a shiny Bisharp, so I could use a super cool shiny King Gambit. I would have even settled for a shiny, stupid Golduck at the Dragon Lake. But no, nothing! The only place left on the entire map was the tan grass area north of Castleroya Lake. If I didn't find one there, I wasn't finding one at all. So I flew to the lake's island, turned to head north, and saw my salvation. Oh my god! Finally! This is amazing!
Amazing. Get that huge power Azumarill going.
I'd become convinced I wasn't gonna get any more.
Flawless.
Finally! And this was perfect again! I liked Palafin, but Azumarill's fairy typing gave me my first offensive stab against fighting and dragon. 2 boss fights still in my future. It even had an adamant nature. Through sheer force of will, I obtained the shiny that I so deserved. My second one, it is less dramatic, I will admit, but I got it!
What is Azumarill's abilities? Azumarill. I'm trying to figure out if you use a patch or you use a capsule. Huge power. Okay, so yeah, you would just use the lesser one. Because the patch is how you get the hidden ability. The capsule should be how you get the regular ability. You would just need to swap the 1 for the 2. But I mean, Thick Fat does also, like, give you, like, what, 50% resistance to ice and fire? But I also feel like that's like win more, right? I feel like huge power is definitely the play there.
Calm down a little bit. Yeah, this was great. It was perfect. The only problem was that it had Thick Fat, a useless ability on a water type, instead of Huge Power, the ability that makes Azumarill good. And while you can buy ability capsules in Scarlet, it's not until you beat the main story, and I didn't want to wait that long. So I immediately traded it to Trinity's game, used an ability capsule on it there, and traded it back. I would have done this exact same thing in my first playthrough. It's not like I could just catch another shiny Marill easily, so I do not consider this nefarious. I had to do some egg move
No, it's just optimization.
shenanigans to teach Marill both Belly Drum and Aqua Jet, which, side note, really surprised me. Whenever I think of Azumarill movesets, I think of Aqua Jet, Belly Drum, and Play Rough, and I think it's weird that the first 2 of those 3 are egg moves.
Yeah.
But once those were squared away, I evolved my shiny Marill into Azumarill.
Well, what's the funny ferret set that people were using and that I honestly used? I brought it to a Ditto raid den. It's Tidy Up Last Resort Ferret, and I think I have a Silk Scarf on mine because you can't choice because you have to use every move before Last Resort. But it's like base 140 stab. It's kind of disgusting. Egg moves are dumb.
And named it Citrus since it kind of looks like a lemon. And then, finally, the Fairy Camp, which is a very silly name for something that I was very scared of. Ortega led with his boring blue Azumarill, which I was prepared for with Claudius.
How pedestrian, your Azumarill is blue.
Terra Poison Jab did less than half because it hit me with Charm first. Knowing it would keep doing this, I used Toxic. I then started a series of switches to avoid super effective moves, tanking the incoming hits, and letting Toxic do its job until Azumarill went down so I could send Claudius back on the field. Wigglytuff came out, and we repeat turn 1. Charm before I can attack, so Poison Jab only does half, and also Cute Charm infatuates me, which admittedly I immediately forgot about right after it happened, so I kept Claudius in and used Toxic, expecting another Charm, but Wigglytuff body slammed instead and paralyzed me. Not even to the Starmobile yet. Claudius hit through both paralysis and infatuation though.
Legend.
And then I swapped to flavor, knowing I could tank hits and not get body slam paralyzed thanks to purifying salt. With curse and a couple heavy slams, flavor KO'd both Wigglytuff and Doxbug.
I really think it's interesting to compare and contrast how he and I play. So, like, I mean, I was going back to Fire and Leaf Green for this. Actually, I was trying to go back to Red for this, like actual RBY Gen 1. I found in singles, I tend to try to be a more controlling player as I age. I need to return to aggression because there is diminishing returns on there's diminishing returns on how controlling you can be. Like, so when I say controlling, I mean like Venusaur is setting, specifically in Gen 1, there's a bug that has an exponential interaction of damage in between Toxic and Leech Seed. But like, even still, I end up using it in like Fire and Leaf Green where that interaction, that bug isn't there. Like, I'll have it in, bulky, Venusaur or whatever, something that can kind of take hits, dish out the Toxic / Poison Powder, ideally Toxic late game because, it's like stage 2 poison. And then you make sure to Leech Seed it as well. That way you get a little bit of sustain back, but you also are able to chip away at them. You put them on a timer effectively. Like, it doesn't work in certain high tier fights like the Elite Four, right? Because they do have full restores. It doesn't get rid of the Leech Seed, but it does get rid of the Toxic. So, I don't know. I found that I'm incredibly controlling, and I'm becoming more aggressive again because there needs to be, especially in modern Pokemon, how like I can't even say modern Pokemon. When you get to a certain point, like the meta is just so hyper fast, right? Like even in Gen 1, right? I mean, if you're bringing Mewtwo and or Mew, which generally, are not admissible into like actual play because, actually OP. But even then, like, something Tauros Body Slam, Thresholding, Tauros Hyper Beam, Gen 1, if Hyper Beam knocks out, it doesn't need a turn to recharge, right? Gen 2 is actually really tanky, if I remember from the False Swipe Gaming videos. That was a little different. But I don't know. It's just interesting to compare and contrast how I do things and how he does things.
But now, the Starmobile. I realized quickly that this Starmobile only had physical moves plus Confuse Ray, so if I could curse up enough, and assuming no crits, the Starmobile would do less damage than leftovers would heal. So that's what I did. Flavor cursed a lot, which I just read that line in the script and I realized it makes it sound like he's just like dropping F-bombs left and right, which is not what happened. Sometimes hurting itself in its confusion, but not every time, until it had maxed its defense stat with its attack just a little lower due to previous baby doll eyes. Then, with a couple heavy slams, Flavor won the battle. Clodsire and Garganacl, two Pokemon that I ditched in my first playthrough because I thought they weren't going to be good enough, and they're actually very great. I like them so much. The only things left before each plotline's series of final battles were the Dragon Titan and the Fighting Team Star Camp. And while the levels are similar, the Fighting Star Camp is going last. Remember,
fair.
I lost to that one in my first playthrough. So after some more running around and training, I decided to take on the final Titan. I handily beat the first phase, and then literally when in the middle of chasing it down, oh!
The Donzo.
Oh my god, I'm in the middle of the Titan! No way!
Okay.
That's crazy!
That's actually crazy because in VGC, Dragonite was incredibly good in Scarlet and Violet. Like, it really had a good showing.
Yes! Oh my god! That's crazy! I got the Mankey earlier, and then I went ages with nothing. And then twice in about 2 hours, in the same place, I've gotten 2 shinies. The lake has redeemed itself in dramatic fashion. Seems I was right all along. My power is unstoppable. It was destiny. What I was owed came to fruition. In my first playthrough, when I finally got my shinies, I got 3 in one day. So it seems fitting that for this redemption playthrough, I get 3 total, not 3 in one day, 2 in one day.
Fair enough.
Still. But I'm not done yet. Several tough endgame battles remain, and this playthrough isn't truly redeemed until I've won them all. So at this point, I added a 4th redemption task. Win all the endgame battles, set battle style, no healing items, and not lose once. Let's fight. After the Shiny Insanity, Arboliva defeated the last two phases of the Dondozo/Tatsugiri Titan with grace, elegance, and a whole lot of Giga Drain and Leech Seed healing. Afterward, I promptly used candies to evolve my shiny Dratini up to Dragonite. Then with my new flying type in my party, I took on the terrifying fighting Team Star battle. Claudius quickly dealt with Toxicroak, then poisoned Annihilate, since I was terrified of powering up its Rage Fists too much. I then brought in Citrus to execute a perfect belly drum sweep, and her Annihilate froze me with Ice Punch!
No!
Oh, come on! Golly, I hate freeze! Rage Fist would have done more damage. Why didn't she go for that? Citrus then sat there like a frozen lemonade for several turns until eventually
Wild.
Toxic killed Annihilate.
Okay.
So I brought in Dragonite against Passimian to try to Dragon Dance sweep, terastallizing it to make it not die to another Rock Tomb.
Right.
Unfortunately, I had to switch because Dragonite had no good moves for Lucario.
I'm trying to remember if switching invalidates and or negates Terra. I think it does, right? Because with Megas, you could swap out. But I think Terra, you lose it on swapping out?
Charlie KO'd Lucario, but then the Starmobile KO'd Charlie. I brought in Redeemer, who screeched twice, tanked 2 moves, and obliterated it with a powered-up Rage Fist. Glorious victory and redemption!
You don't, it stays Terra? Oh, that changes things then. I actually didn't know that.
Take that, Airy, and your stupid freezes. You're not even a nice trainer. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. Also, I should note, at this point, I could have added the Shiny Dragonite to my team permanently, and I didn't because I was too attached to all of the other members.
Makes
Feels
sense.
weird that I boxed a shiny pseudo-legendary, but I did. I would not have if I got it earlier. With the rest of them, we were tight. But with the defeat of Airy, that meant I had finished all of the badges, meaning it was time for the final series of battles for the 3 plots. After some training, I decided I would do them generally in order from lowest to highest level, which meant first, the Elite 4.
Right.
First, Rika. Brawliv beat Whiscash, and then because of Yawn, Citrus was forced to KO the Camerupt without belly drumming. Against Poison Jab Donphan, I terastallized to remove the weakness to poison, tanked the Poison Jab, and got poisoned by it. And then I forgot about Sturdy, and Citrus lost to Donphan.
No.
I was so excited to belly drum sweep, and at this point I was 0 for 2. I switched around.
I feel this. I have actually done this.
With Brawliv and Redeemer to use Rocky Helmet to KO Donphan, and in that process, Redeemer got poisoned. Ugh. But against Clodsire, Redeemer held on and used a progressively strengthening Rage Fist to take it down and win the battle. Next was Poppy, and this toddler got absolutely clobbered. Terrifier, Metronome, Skeledirge, Torch Song swept through literally her entire team.
Okay.
It was awesome. Larry's Tropius lead scared up my Garganical, but then he foolishly set up Sun as I switched in Skeledirge.
You fool, you have just helped my own game state.
With the Sun Firepower boost, Charlie swept through 3 of his Pokemon, including Altaria. Oh my god, I was resisted.
Wild,
Eventually,
yeah.
Oricorio defeated Charlie, but Flavor came in and cleaned up, even hanging on against fighting Flamigo. Next was Hassel. The first 3 Pokemon were taken down by 3 different Pokemon of my own, but eventually Citrus came in to finish off Haxorus and Baxcalibur. No belly drum. Didn't really need it. Finally,
Yeah.
Champion Geeta. Geetar done.
This should be an easy sweep.
Charlie beat Espathra, but was forced to take a beating in the process. Against Avalugg, I swapped around with Brawliv to set up grassy terrain, then used Redeemer to finish it off, but again, took a beating. Claudius came in against Go-Goat, but sadly fell to some Zen headbutts. However, this sacrifice did allow me to safely bring Charlie back in, but my Torch Song didn't kill. Oh no!
No! That roll.
Ooh, thank God she was dumb, otherwise Skeledirge was definitely fainting. Charlie was then able to finish off Go-Goat and King Gambit until Veluza took it down. Then Brawliv with Big Root Grassy Terrain Giga Drain healed up all its damage in the process of defeating Veluza. Finally, as Geeta terastallized her Glamora, I did the same, removed Brawliv's poison weakness, tanked a Sludge Wave, and fired back with a one-shot Petal Dance.
Wow, Arbor Olive actually goes hard. That's actually, like, kind of nutty.
I was officially a champion-ranked trainer, but Next step is battling Nemona, who is the highest level of all of these end-of-plot trainers, so I decided I would save her for last. Instead, it was time to battle Clavel. Wait, hold on, freeze frame right here? Look at that smug grin. I'm about to wipe that off his. This battle was one of the most brutal of the entire playthrough. Flavor beat Oranguru, then of course Charlie beat Abomasnow, but due to Aurora Veil, it took 2 hits to do so. In came Poltegeist, and then, despite being at +2 special attack, Shadow Ball did not OHKO because of, again, Aurora Veil.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, right? Why was it Light Clay Alola Ninetales in Gen 7 was definitely tested? Because Aurora Veil setting both screens is disgusting.
But even after a Shell Smash, Charlie held on and won the next turn. Charlie had nothing for Houndoom though, so I swapped in Citrus on a perfect prediction Sludge Bomb instead of a super effective Dark move like I thought it was gonna be, and the Sludge Bomb poisoned me again!
Wow.
Oh my god, what is with the poisoning today? That's ridiculous. That is 1 Sludge Bomb and 2 Poison Jab poisons over the span of just 6 battles. Which I know, that doesn't sound like a lot, but they only have a 30% chance to poison each. Wait, really? Oh, huh. Well, I thought it was 10. Well, okay, doesn't sound as bad now that I run the numbers. But it was still annoying. It meant, again, no belly drum! And in fact,
I mean, that's why certain moves are ran over the others, right? Scald is like, what, base power 80, but like a 30% chance to like burn. Yeah, there's a reason like they kind of like weaned back on like how many Pokemon got Scald, because Scald was disgusting. I think Poison Jab has like a 30% chance to poison. I think Gunk Shot does as well. Pokemon Gunk Shot, I have to use Bulbapedia because they actually have the calculations there. Question mark? 80% accuracy. Does it not? Is it just a base power 120? Does not make contact, affected by Protect. I could have swore that it poisoned. Does it not? I need to figure this out. I'm sorry. We're going for this really quick. 30% chance of poisoning the target. Actually, Pokemon DB had that information this time. Interesting. I couldn't find a Bulbapedia offhand. Wow, yeah, so Gunk Shot does 30 as well, but it's like, I don't know, because like it's always been a 30 and 10 split, right? For all intents and purposes. Unless it's a special move that is a coin flip. Like, doesn't Crunch have like a 10% chance to flinch? Like, it's the balancing point of like weaker move, higher chance, that kind of thing. Let's go for Pokemon Crunch. Not Crunchy. Pokemon Crunch. 20% chance. No, that just lowers the target's defense by 1 stage. I'm lost in the weeds here. But generally, yeah, it's one of those things like as the move gets more powerful, you can see a decrease as a balancing, a decrease in like additional status. Because it does, it's a balancing point. It does have balancing points. But sometimes you definitely run into things like Gunk Shot. Like, Gunk Shot, right? Gunk Shot does base power 120 as well as a 30% chance to poison, but it's balanced out by, being 80% accurate, right? Like, a lot of moves are really fair. It does suck when, the Gunk Shot or the Fire Blast does hit, though. Or, like, the Hydro Pump. It does suck when they do hit.
It was worse than that. Aqua Jet could not one-shot the Houndoom, so Citrus lost. Redeemer was able to finish it off, but then against Amoonguss, a Pokemon that if you've watched any of Wolfie's videos, you'll know is very, very good. I was in trouble since Charlie was barely alive. So I used Redeemer the best I could, but missing a Screech plus the Toxic Hex combo was too much. Then Amoonguss yawned Claudius, forcing me to switch out. Finally, Brawliv came in, finished off Amoonguss's last bit of health, and after barely surviving a Brick Break from Quaquaval, it finally won the battle. I thought Clavel would be a pushover, and I ended that battle with 3 Pokemon fainted, 1 with 2 HP, 1 that was asleep, and 1 that was healthy, but it had not been before it just healed a bunch with Giga Drain. If this old man gave me that much trouble, what was next? Could I truly redeem this playthrough? Or would I actually lose a battle? Before the fight with Penny, I made
No, because you have to do the 3 plot lines before going to Area 0. Right, I forgot about that. Right, so Nimona would be first.
an important change. I taught Claudius Toxic Spikes. I'd been wanting to do this for a while, but so many
Double-layered.
battles in a row had a poison type on their team that could just be sent in to absorb the Toxic Spikes.
Right.
However, now that I had defeated Clavel and his Amoonguss, there were no more poison types in any major battle for the rest of the story. Against Penny, I immediately got to set up those Toxic Spikes against Umbreon. Then, finally, Belly Drum with Citrus.
Okay.
It swept through Umbreon and Jolteon and did less than half to Leafeon.
Interesting.
Because I had to use Aqua Jet because it outsped me otherwise. But
Right.
Leafeon resists water and has insane defense, and then it KO'd Citrus with one Leaf Blade.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess
0-3.
I got to do a little bit of belly drum sweeping if you count 2 Pokemon as a sweep. Charlie came in to KO
Technically 30% of a team.
Leafeon, then stayed in against Vaporeon to hit it with +1 special attack, double-powered Stab Hex, which did not KO, and thus
Wild.
Charlie fell to Hydro Pump.
Yep.
Good God, some of these evolutions are so bulky! Redeemer finished off Vaporeon, then did some damage to Flareon before I brought in Claudius, who, full disclosure, I fully forgot did not resist fire. And it got walloped by Flare Blitz so bad that Flareon actually KO'd itself.
I mean, to be fair, like the evolutions do have 130s, right? Flareon specifically, if I remember correctly, has like a 130 in the attack stat. So that is a, stab 120 base fire move that just hits you for neutral off of that 130. Just actual tactical nuke incoming.
Finally with Sylveon, finished off by the combo of Flavor and Brawliv. Again, half my team taken out in a battle that I thought I would breeze through. I was really starting to worry that I could have a real loss and thus fail my final redemptive task. With the wholesome plot of Starfall Street complete, I challenged Arvin at the lighthouse during a frankly very aesthetic sunset. Claudius set up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes, but then as I brought in Brawliv, it got paralyzed by Body Slam.
Oh, that 30%.
It finished off Greedent, and then Charlie beat Scovillain with Hex, which pairs quite fantastically with Toxic Spikes. I brought in Brawliv for Garganical, but after a super effective body press and full paralysis, I pivoted to Redeemer and terastallized it to pure fighting to ensure I could kill. Close Combat did just that. Toedscruel was a huge problem though, with super effective moves for my entire team, except Redeemer, who was in the battle and had lowered defense.
Man, Toedscruel is wild. I know it gets Mycelium Might, Toedscruel. I forget what it does, though. I know it's definitely seen some VGC experimentation, at minimum. Mycelium Might, status moves go last, but are not affected by the opponent's ability. I mean, that's not that awful. That's really interesting. I need to see what people are building on it. This Pokemon has honestly just been really fascinating to watch. Like, I actually really love the design.
Predicted a grass attack and swapped to Charlie, who just got put to sleep. So then I had to swap to Brawliv, who got KO'd by Sludge Bomb. Finally, I brought Redeemer back in, who close combat KO'd the Toedscruel. It did the same to Cloyster right after. It would have done the same to Mabosstiff. Side note, I still feel bad for battling this dog.
Yeah.
And especially, like, poisoning it. That feels like really wrong after what it went through. But the doggy was faster. Flavor came in to do its Curse Salt Cure combo, but it fainted first, right before poison damage took the dog out. Felt good to win. Felt bad to defeat the formerly sick dog with poison. At this point, there were only 2 battles left, Nimona and Sada. And these battles are supposed to be tougher than the ones I had just did. But the last 3 had, again, taken out half my team in the process.
Right.
It was truly getting dicey, but there was nothing else I can do but keep going.
Yeah.
I led with Claudius again, yawning Lycanroc, but Drill Run did too much for me to tank another one.
Right.
So I swapped to Brawliv for terrain healing on Claudius, then brought Claudius back in to set up the Toxic Spikes, but Lycanroc only slept for 1 turn.
No!
However, it set up Stealth Rocks instead of Drill Running. This gave Claudius enough health to survive another drill run and set up the second layer.
The Stealth Rock is actually why the Dragonite not being on the team is actually beneficial here, because 25% would definitely be gone from that Stealth Rock.
Olive came back in to beat Lycanroc, and then I swapped to Redeemer against Pawmot, ignoring the fighting damage. Double Shock did a ton because of a crit, but that powered up Rage Fist, which didn't KO Pawmot, but the poison damage did right after. And then Redeemer went crazy in the best way possible. It Drain Punched through both Dudunsparce and Orthworm, keeping it alive. The hits stacked up too, so by the time it attacked Goodra, Rage Fist was at 200 power and easily one-shot it. Rage Fist might be my new favorite move in all of Pokemon. It's so broken, and it's definitely getting nerfed in the next generation.
Probably.
So I'm gonna enjoy it while I have the chance. Neoscarada did KO Redeemer, but that was fine because it allowed for a poetic story face-off between the two Terra starters, which of course Charlie won. So that meant Nemona's battle went shockingly smoothly. I only had one Pokemon faint. Maybe I have a chance. I won't go into detail on all the story beats of the descent into Area Zero, but I will say that replaying this part reminded me of how much I appreciate Scarlet and Violet's story. This was so interesting and unique the first time, and I only wish we could have played it on the Switch 2 from the beginning. There were so many wild Pokemon, and since you're forced to be on foot during this part, a lot of times I struggled to avoid them. And finally, I reached the bottom for the final unscripted battle of the game, AI Sada. And
I feel like Scarlet and Violet, when it's not as left open and ambiguous, when it's not Skyrim, right? Hey, go play Skyrim, okay? Like, oh, cool, we're gonna go through, get outside of Helgen, right? You know, the Alduin attacking, and it's like, cool, go to Riverwood, and it's like, how many people just go, nah, I'm going this way, right? You can go to Markarth, you can go to Solitude, you can go to Riften, you can go wherever you want, right? Iverstead, you can go up to the throat of the world, right? Like, Skyrim, yeah, it can be like, yeah, hi, let's go here. I'm using Skyrim, yes, I'm aware it's any open world RPG, right? Skyrim is just the offhand example I had because I was talking about it recently. Like, I feel the strengths were when Pokemon was actually, Scarlet and Violet were actually, like, telling the story. Like, going through Area Zero, having had the relationships and character arcs building from Arvin, Penny, right? Like Nemona being able to go down into Area Zero and have like a clear cut, this is what we're doing. I mean, and you think back to something like, I was playing through Oraz recently and even Emerald by extension, right? And it's like, you kind of have a pretty good idea of through like the first like 4 or 5 gyms, right? Like, you know, you have a clear goal to Roxanne, after Roxanne, then you go to Steven's dad, right? So it sends you on Mr. Briny down to where Brawley is, and then Brawley you go over to is it Slateport? I think it's like Slateport, and then you go up to Mallville, you beat what's his face, Watson there, and then it kind of gets a little ambiguous once you find Rock Smash, you smash the rock. Shocker. And then you kind of like wander around a little bit until eventually, you find like Meteor Falls, go find Flannery, right? But it's still something that you can kind of intuit, especially in Auras where it kind of holds your hand a little bit more. And then you go back down to Norman and you beat Norman, and then you like go across to the east half of the map. And then it starts to get a little long and drawn out in certain aspects there. Like, so we're not like, this isn't outside the realm for Pokemon, where Pokemon games have, they've been like, yeah, cool, just go to the next place, 5-head, right? Grats, you went east of Mallville to the east side of the map, right? Now you have to go up, up one route through the Weather Institute, up to Fortree City, and then you got to go down to Lily Cove City, and you got to go to Moss Deep. And it's like, it's such a long period of time without things happening. That long stretch of time without things really happening, I guess, Mount Pyre comes in there at some point, right? Like, is kind of equivalent to the main story. They just kind of like front-loaded it in Scarlet and Violet, if that makes sense. And like, there are story beats like the Titans and stuff to keep you going, right? But like, I have to rationalize what would have made the game like more linear, and we don't want like hyper linear, right? I know that's a big complaint about Sun and Moon specifically, because the game really held your hand, and there were just for the first 40 minutes are just cutscenes, right? Like, so I get why Pokemon's wanting to avoid something like that specifically, but at the same time, it's also like there is a thing as too ambiguous, and I think that it does suffer from that ambiguity. But it's one of those, like, there could be intelligent back and forth about it if it's good or not.
I came prepared. Instead of Claudius, I led with Charlie so I could burn Slitherwing, allowing Claudius to better tank the Zen headbutts. No crits occurred, so I successfully set up my toxic spikes. Once those were there, Charlie came back in and KO'd Slitherwing. And while I could have kept going, I knew Brute Bonnet's Sucker Punch would be a problem. Instead, I swapped to Redeemer, knowing I could heal Sucker Punch damage with Drain Punch and power up Rage Fist in the process.
Right.
With an attack and some poison damage, Brute Bonnet fell. And then came Scream Tail. And despite Redeemer being slower and weak to Fairy, I decided to stay in and attack. And the play rough missed.
No.
Yeah, that was risky.
That is every time I use Play Rough as Zacian. Every single time. I cannot stand Play Rough.
Worked out. Against Fluttermane, I had to switch, knowing it would KO with either of its stabs. So I swapped into Flavor, who tanked a Purifying Salt-resisted Shadow Ball. With Assault Cure and Heavy Slam, Flavor got the win. Brawliv easily outmatched Sandy Shocks, and then I sent in Citrus for Roaring Moon. While a Play Rough miss made things scary, Citrus finished strong and won the battle.
Yeah!
Good stuff.
I nailed that battle.
This was one of the best final battles that I've ever had. I played Set with no healing items, yet not only did none of my Pokemon faint, but all of them hit the field and got exactly 1 KO. Even Claudius, whose Toxic Spikes dealt the final blow to Brute Bonnet. It was a perfect battle with a team that I had grown very fond of. After the Koraidon fight, the game was complete. So in the end, I got to play on the Switch 2, use a team of Pokemon I've now grown very attached to, found 3 shinies, 2 of which stayed on my final team, and won every endgame battle in style. Every imperfection of my first Scarlet playthrough has certainly been redeemed. Just in time for the next game. Thanks so much for watching.
Right.
If you never saw or want to relive the story of my descent into madness of my first Scarlet playthrough, you can check that out right here.
That's kind of wild. I honestly really enjoyed this. I thought that this was a really good video. I thought that this was a really good way of kind of doing a retrospective and also acknowledging some of the issues that it had, right? Whether it be story pacing. A lot of my issues, as it turns out, are quite literally just on the technological side of things. Like, sure, we can argue story beats. Sure, we can argue, certain things, such as themes, morals, etc. At the end of the day, it's a Pokemon game, right? I mean, I think XD and Coliseum were kind of a little bit of like pioneers in their field for all intents and purposes because, like, they were kind of different. They were just, offshoots, right? So, and they covered some pretty heavy themes in regards to, shadow Pokemon. But, like, I don't know. I don't expect the world. I expect a functional and streamlined game, right? And when I say streamlined, I mean, like, it doesn't make my eyes hurt from, like, FPS drops. The pop-in, sure, because of what it is, I can kind of justify it, like, something, not the most powerful system out there. Like, there has to be, like, a sort of give and take there. But I mean, honestly, like, without the tech issues, I'll have to do another playthrough. This is what if this was the intention was releasing this on not the Switch 1, I think that they should have held off personally. But then again, I'm also not Nintendo. I'm not Pokemon Company. I don't know what their balance sheets look like. I don't know what their constituents look like in regards to, say, investors, shareholders, pressures from them, etc. Profit go up quarter over quarter, right? And even then, Moist Critical did a video yesterday that I watched about Nintendo allegedly filing a patent for some very broad, like, quote-unquote summoning mechanics, which is really interesting because summoning, you think of games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering. You don't necessarily think of Pokemon because Pokemon does try to curate their brand image very well, especially from the PokeLeaks, seeing some of the Team Skull, S logos, right? And some of the rationale behind why some things were changed. That Pokemon is very, very particular and very protective of their brand and what do you call it? Not monitoring. Marketing to children, right? That's the word, marketing. But at the end of the day, those are more company issues and like business philosophy issues I have with Nintendo. And I assure you, there's going to be a number of people who actually push back if Nintendo continues to file incredibly broad patents, but also not file patents against things like Monster Hunter, whatever the new Monster Hunter funny game is, because it looks very similar to Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of hypocrisy that gamers look at Nintendo right for now. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about just Pokemon, especially Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it is lamentable that a Switch 2 is what makes the game playable, in my opinion. Not that the game was unplayable before. The Switch 1 just made my eyes hurt. It made my eyes hurt. It wasn't fun to play. My eyes were bugging, just wigging out. And I honestly didn't enjoy playing it because of the technological limitations. With the Switch 2, I'm able to play the game. And I can only hope that, Pokemon has, and by extension Nintendo, has learned a lesson from this. But, we will see. I am personally going to be purchasing Pokemon Legends Z to A. I want to see how that works. I think it's going to be really fun to play through on stream over on the Purple app. But at the end of the day, I mean, I can tell you that as someone who plays just Scarlet and Violet on my Switch 2, it's done a lot to alleviate a lot of the concerns that I had. So, we will see what the future holds. Thank you, MandJTV, for another amazing upload. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it seems like a lot of you did as well. Thank you, everybody. Let me know what your experience with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has been, especially if it's on the Switch 2. And I will see you all in the next one.